Now, I'm not a dancer, but I've always felt like I could be a dancer, and it's something that it's always interested me a lot. And since I was a little girl, before I knew what dancing would be or what the requirements would be, I always called myself a singer-dancer. That was my thing. The two for me were interconnected. So first thing, dancers stretch all the time. They're always stretching. They spend a lot of time on the floor. I felt immediately represented by this idea because I'm always stretching. I don't like sitting on chairs. I suffer from behaving like a normal person. And to find a bunch of people whose default resting state was this is my calling. They have to stretch all the time because it makes the biggest difference to keep your body lax and your muscles and your tendons just juiced up and relaxed. For me, it's just natural. And all my life I've spent just being on the floor and wanting to move. That's another thing that I really have trouble with, is being still. I like to, for me, like for dancers, stretching is just, it's normality, you know? It's the norm. It's not something that you go and do for an hour. It's just your general state is to be doing movements like this, and it's beautiful. And it just feels so profoundly natural. So when I'm there or I go to the studio and I can just take my shoes off and cross my legs, or get on the floor and stretch my legs and open my legs and pull my arms up and twirl them around, and that's normal. I love that. Dancers are performers. There's a really big difference between artists, performers, and other people, including just general public that goes to fitness classes. I'm really not in the general public, and I guess on one hand I try to disguise myself as normal, but on the other hand I'm really not. For me, this is work. I need to be at the top of my game in terms of, I need to be ready, basically. Even if I'm not hired to perform anywhere, I need to be ready to record videos, and my body needs to be in a state where it's ready, basically, and stable, and that's a really big part of who I am. And I've always been this way since I was born. And being a performer and being an artist, there's something inside you which you are never quite happy with. There's this determination. I completely relate to that. And there's a kindness that comes from that determination that's bigger than yourself. It looks like we artists have a big ego because we use ourselves as a subject, but actually it's completely independent from that. It's a character. You know, the artist part that I show, for instance, that I display, that's a character that I've made up. So I don't really see myself in it so much, I just use the image. Artists, performers are a vessel, basically, and dancers are a vessel. You have to tap in with that's out there and make it happen. So that's another thing I learned through becoming a dancer. Dancers are kind and welcoming. Like most artists and performers, I'm not gonna say that there's no competition, of course there is, but just the general vibe is that you want to improve because you want your body to be the best vessel that it can be, and not because you want to say that you spent an hour burning calories. It's just not about that at all. It's never been about that for me. Another thing that I learned is that appearance is fun because you're a performer. Everything stems from being an artist performer. It's the complete opposite as in a gym or a fitness studio or a yoga class, where often you feel like you have to detach from yourself, your attractive self, and you have to put on your torture, martyr, suffering clothes that are meant to be it's almost as if you were trying to evoke this selfless Buddhist spirituality where you have no desire. In dancers, you can wear makeup, you can wear regular clothes, you can wear whatever the hell you want, and you're not self-conscious about having to appear like you are serious. Being serious has nothing to do with wearing boring clothes. You can really be in costume actually, and you can be doing your makeup there, and it just feels much more natural. It's a lifestyle. It takes up a lot of time because you have to get there, you have to wear clothes that you can dance in, and then you have to come back. So to be realistic, you can't really be changing clothes all the time. You have to be ready. I've been in my dancing clothes ever since I started because I have to go to class, come back from class. And I don't have time, and it's too much hassle to have to change, and then temperature changes. It's not such a controlled environment in dance studios as in gyms or other fitness studios. I realized that there's so many girls. I never get to see girls in performing activities because I never get to see other performers. I always work with, as a performer, you work with producers and people like technicians or managers, or there's usually one performer ratio and then a bunch of other people. Another thing I've learned, and this is an observation, but it's a very interesting observation, and that is that I don't know why there is this division. There's this separation in perception between dancing and singing, which are both very similar ways of expression. I mean, you're creating something and then you're performing it, but somehow there isn't such a big organization when it comes to singing. There's no singing studios where 40 people will go and sing together, and they can do it for fun or they can do it to learn. There's no such thing. First of all, there's no such thing to learn to be a singer. Of course, there's performance schools like the ones that I went to, but there's very, very few and far in between, and kind of like being a singer is considered always a profession where you have to aim to be famous, and that's the only possible outcome. Whereas being a dancer, it's considered, first of all, it's considered an activity that you can do even if you don't want to be a professional backup dancer or dancer of any kind. And second of all, if you do want to be a professional dancer, to have a school where you can just drop in, I mean, that would be a dream for singers. I don't understand why that doesn't happen with singers. Like there's no place that you can go and drop in a class and they'll be teaching you vocal warm-ups during this hour, and then during this other hour. It's because, as I said, being a singer is considered to be like you can only study singing or sing if you want to be a professional singer, and that shouldn't be like that. Like singing is just like dancing. It's a thing that humans do. All humans can do it. Even people who are tone deaf, I have taught them singing, and by the end of the class they were singing in the right tune. So often people think they can't sing, and I think everybody can sing with the right instruction, just like everybody can dance. So anyway, that's just a side comment, observation on the difference between singing and dancing and why, and I don't know why. Because people used to study singing, you know, in the Victorian times, and even after that, in the 40s and 50s, families would sing and children would be singing for their families, and they would have their singing and music class. And I just don't know why music isn't... Every time you come across someone who can sing, you're like, oh my god, you should become a singer, you should get a record deal. Like, whoa, you can sing and you can study singing and you can go to music and instrument and singing classes every day if you want to, and not do that professionally, you know? Doing it professionally is a whole other thing, because then it becomes a business. Like the stuff that I do in relation with being a pop star artist, 99% of the time has nothing to do with singing. I hardly spend any time singing. Just like most other people, unless you're on tour or unless that's your thing, that you are performing all the time, but you don't necessarily do that. And just like you can dance and you don't necessarily have to be performing the same routine every day. There's different levels, and there's just... It's a big thing. It's a big world. Like there's a space for it, and there's a space for everybody that feels that way, where they teach you all these things and they give you all the tools and opportunity, and they do castings in the studios, which I think is amazing, so you can get jobs from it. It's really well organized. I think somebody should do the same thing for music. I'm always tempted to do it myself, but I have so much going on. So back to what I learned about dancers is that they embrace expression. So when you do fitness as a dancer, it's a different dimension entirely, because the kind of fitness that you do, first of all, it's aimed at being able to express yourself and being able to keep healthy. Those are pretty much the aims. So it's kind on your body, you stretch a lot, you do all the things that you have to do to feel really good and capable, and you also do it in a way that's very beautiful and artistic. And there's a lot of, like, you can do beautiful movements and nobody is like looking at you like, oh, look at her, she's trying to be all sexy. You have to try to be all sexy and powerful, and you have to be, you know, there, which is how you have to be in what I do, because that's what I do. I mean, I do the same thing. I think maybe that's why I consider myself a dancer, because it's very interlinked. It's performance. So when I'm at the gym or places like that, I just don't... It's not the same thing. People judge you for trying to... I don't know, there's this tension that you can never forget. Whereas in dancing, you can just go for it, because that's what it's about. And that's what it should be about. So, fitness classes, they are not as advanced in the way that you expect them to. but they really get your body to a point where you feel great every time. After anything that you do, you never feel like it's been too much. You never feel like they're trying to cause an injury on you. You use bent legs a lot. You bend your legs so much more than you would think. In fitness classes, you don't bend them that much, and people are much less prepared. It just doesn't make any sense. I have big objections with fitness classes. The way they're taught and the way they're seen. In dance, there's a lot of opportunities to stretch, and then strengthen too, but also stretch. Oof, I don't even know if I'm on camera anymore. Where are you, camera? Please give me attention. Oof. So, also, I've learned that you get to meet people because people are friendly and they want to help you and they're honest. You know, like I left a pair of really nice sunglasses on top of a table in the bathroom, in the changing room, which is a room where a lot of people come in, because that's another thing. It's like the military in there. There's a lot of people. 3 hours later, I went to all of my classes that morning, and 3 hours later, they were still there, which was incredible. Because in any other place, they would have likely been returned to reception, maybe. Or they would have just taken them. So, those are the things that I learned about becoming